No Six Nations this weekend as it takes a week off, but we do have some URC games to warm our cockles. My name's Mark, let's talk rugby. Round 10 of the URC, so obviously this is in the middle of the Six Nations, so a lot of the star players who are involved in that won't be available, but some will be released back to their provinces, regions, whatever, to play this weekend because they haven't played for a few weeks. So we're going to see a couple of guys, the likes of Ben Healy is definitely in the Edinburgh team, and a few others like that who've been released to get a bit of game time before going back into camp. But also something to remember is you might think of these kind of this round and there's another one coming up as well, thinking it's not that important, but this is actually one of the most important rounds of the season. And the reason for that is because a win here is still worth, like if you win, you still get 4 points, right? If you win with a bonus point, you still get 5 points. So it's a massive chance for some teams to get that extra win that they need to either put themselves in position, kickstart their season, keep themselves where they want to be, whatever. Like a win this weekend is going to do a lot for any team that does get it, and it can have a big impact on where in the final shake-up where teams are going to go, because there aren't that many rounds left until teams are going to be scrambling for playoff places and stuff like that. So if you can get a win on this weekend, it sets you up in a great position, to come out of the Six Nations when players do come back for the Northern Hemisphere teams, the European teams at least, and to have a bit of momentum going into that final run. So I think it's a very important run of games for the teams. And what we're going to do is we're just going to go down through each of the games that we have queued up for this weekend, and see kind of what the matchups are and how that could affect those teams. So the first is Scarlets versus Munster. This is 13th versus 11th. It's in Parky Scarlets it's on Friday, February 16th, and kickoff is 7:35 GMT. So adjust to your local time, whatever that happens to be. So both these teams coming into this game have lost their last two games in the competition, and they won the one before that. And then kind of similar, like in their last 7 games, Scarlets have won 3, Munster have won, or 2, sorry, Munster have won 3. And then you look at that table position as well, like 13 versus 11th, and you think, oh, that sounds like they're very close in the table. But when we look at the actual table, we see that, although they're close in terms of position, they're not actually close in points, because Munster have 24 points and they're just 1 point off Ospreys in 8th place, whereas Scarlets are 12 points back from Munster. So even a win for Scarlets, even a bonus point win for Scarlets, and they're still, well adrift of Munster, even adrift of Cardiff, who were in 12th place on 21 points. So, basically what Scarlets need is a win here to give themselves some kind of momentum to try and get up there and get back into that pack to chase for playoff places, because at the moment they're kind of ahead of that little group at the bottom, like the bottom 4 there, who are cut a little bit adrift of all the rest. But for Munster, a win for them means they're back in that hunt, and potentially, depending on how other results go, they're back in the playoff positions, and that's where they want to be. And obviously, if you're Munster, you're not just looking for this win, you're looking for it to be a win that kicks off like a string of a run of wins for you to bring you back up that table, because there's a lot of teams kind of fighting out for there, and Munster at the moment are kind of towards the end of that pack, and they, defending champions, they want to be further up the table. But Munster, I saw a glimpse of the team. I didn't see the full team, but it looks like they have some decent picks in there as well. And I've got to say on this one, if we're going to back a winner, I'm going to back Munster in this to win away from home. Scarlets have been very patchy all season. Munster, though, they have to find a way to actually perform in the second half, because they've started games so well and then fallen off in the second half so many times. They need to fix that. But that's the first game up on Friday. But also at the same time, we have Zebre versus Edinburgh. So this is 14th versus 6th. And, you know, in terms of form, like, you know, Zebre, they got their first win of the season, and that was followed by a draw, but they've been a 4-game losing streak after that. And Edinburgh have been in decent form. You know, they've won 4 of the last 7 games, including the last time out as well. So I think they're going to be confident coming into this. And looking at the table, you know, Edinburgh at the moment, you know, they're up there in 6th place. And a win here kind of keeps them in that kind of middle pack where they want to be. Whereas Zebre, you know, despite getting like the first win in 2 years and getting that draw as well, they're beginning to drift down to kind of more familiar territory towards the bottom of the table. Down in 14th place, they're just 2 points ahead of the Dragons, who are 15th, and then 3 points ahead of the Sharks, who are at the moment propping up the table. And in this one, I can see maybe Zebre making it difficult for Edinburgh, but I think Edinburgh are going to come through for the win. So those are the Friday games. On to then the Saturday games. So the first game up on Saturday is the Lions versus the Bulls. So, you know, a nice South African derby there. It's 10th versus 4th, and this is at the Emirates Airline Park. I'm sure South Africans know it by a different name, the way we, you know, in the Northern Hemisphere would know our stadiums by different names, because we don't normally call them after the sponsors, but that seems to be in vogue at the moment. But yeah, so in terms of the former teams, like Lions, they had a poor start to the season. They've gotten hitting a little bit of form. They had to run, you know, a streak of 3 wins in a row. Then they lost last time out. Bulls, they've been the form team of the South Africans so far this season. They won 5 of the last 7. So probably looking to win away from home in this one. But Lions maybe home advantage, you know, given that they've been decent recently, maybe just enough for them. But in terms of, you know, the effect on the table of a win for either team, well, first up, you know, if we look at Zebre, or sorry, not Zebre, the Lions. We looked at Zebre before. Looking at the Lions, so the Lions at the moment, you know, they're in 10th place. So same points as Munster, same points as Connacht as well. So a win for them is kind of crucial to stay in that hunt for playoff places. There's a lot of quality teams down there scrambling for those places, and it is going to be a scramble because we're not that far away. You know, we just hit the halfway stage of the season, and the rest of the season is going to run through pretty quickly. The Bulls, on the other hand, they're right up there near the top. They're only 4 points off Leinster at the top of the table. So a win for them potentially could move them up at least into the top 3, maybe into the top 2, because they're, you know, on 30 match points. They're just 1 point behind the Warriors, Glasgow Warriors, that is, 2 points behind Benetton, and 4 behind Leinster. So if any of those teams slip up and the Bulls come out with a win, then Bulls are moving up the table. And, you know, it's hard to see how this one's going to go. But I think, like, if I had been early on in this season, I would have said Bulls to win. But with the Lions at home and been in decent form recently, I think I'm going to just about shade it to the Lions. But with the Bulls probably getting a losing bonus point, and maybe even both teams getting a try bonus point, it could be one of those ones where we see plenty of scores. The next one then is a top of the table clash, you know, and again just shows how important, you know, this weekend's fixtures could be. This is Leinster versus Benetton, and, you know, it is first versus second in the table, so it doesn't get any more top of the table clash than that. And, you know, you're talking about Leinster. They lost last time out. They lost to Zebre as well. It was about time really for them, because there was a few problems with them, but then they went into the the Champions Cup fixtures and seemed to have really discovered a form. Now let's see if they can keep that going, but they were on a streak of wins before that. Both of these teams, though, have only lost once in the last 7 games, and, you know, they both only actually lost once this season. Sorry, Leinster have lost twice because they lost the opening game against Glasgow. So Benetton are actually the team with the lowest amount of losses in in the competition so far this year, and if they had been better at picking up bonus points, they would have actually been ahead of Leinster at this stage. You know, they're a team that haven't picked up that many bonus points, only 2 so far this year to Leinster's 6, so that's kind of why Leinster are top of the table there. But Leinster at home against a Benetton side who have a lot of their players in the Italian, you know, national squad. Leinster obviously with a lot of their players in the Irish national squad as well. But I think when you step down into kind of second string for both of these teams, I think Leinster's quality in their squad and in their system is going to come through there. And I think this is going to be a Leinster win. But, you know, Benetton, they're not up there like by accident, up to near the top of the table. And anybody thinks that, oh, it's Leinster against an Italian team, so of course they're going to win. Try bonus points, they're going to be easy. It's probably not going to be as easy as you think. I still think Leinster are going to win, but I think that, you know, Benetton, they've hugely improved, and they're not going to want to go to the RDS and just lie down and let Leinster walk all over them. So I'm expecting a decent fight for them, but just that quality that Leinster have, you know, especially when we come into the second half and you're going to kind of your bench and players who, you know, wouldn't normally be maybe in match day squads coming on. I think that's where Leinster's quality is really going to come through towards the end. So yeah, I'm backing Leinster for the win there. Next then we have, so that one, is the 3 o'clock kickoff on Saturday. Then we move on to the 3:05 kickoff. So I guess if I watch the Leinster game, I can catch the last 5 minutes of this one, depending on how things goes. But this is the Sharks versus Stormers, so another South African derby, and this is 16th versus 7th. Sharks, they've been rooted to the bottom of the table. I've talked about them before in terms of stats. They're showing a lot of good signs in their stats, but they're not quite putting everything together for a performance that is delivering wins to them. Whereas the Stormers, you know, they had a really poor start to the season. They're coming into a little bit of form. And if we check their form as well, we can kind of see that. So, like the Sharks have won 1 of the last 7. The Stormers have won the last 3, but it is 3 from 7 for them as well. So it's those last 3 games that they really came together, and you could see that they were starting to their motor and move their way up the table. And because of that, I think Stormers are going to win this one. And, you know, we're going to see the Sharks still at the bottom of the table, despite maybe the teams just above them losing as well this weekend, because I think Zebre are probably going to lose, and we'll come on to the Dragons a little bit later. But yeah, Stormers possibly would have win there. They're in 7th place, and then depending on how things go, you know, I'm expecting, so they're on the same amount of points as Edinburgh, expecting Edinburgh to win, and then behind them they got Ospreys and Munster a little bit behind there. So those two, you know, potentially, you know, winning and putting pressure on them as well. So it's important for Stormers, I think, to win this one and not to kind of drop back out of that top 8 and lose momentum. They're a team, you know, they've been in the final now, like defending like champions 2 years ago, in the final last year as well. They're not going to want to miss out on the playoffs. You know, they're a proud team, and they want to be looking up the table, not down at the moment. And I think this is one where they need to win to give themselves that little bit of a cushion where they can feel like they're chasing down teams rather than being chased down themselves. So yeah, I'm going for a Stormers win in that one. Next then we have Cardiff Rugby versus Connacht. So 2 teams who are just outside the playoff places. 12th place for Cardiff, 9th place for Connacht. So Connacht just 1 place outside that. So one of these teams is going to get a real boost with a win here to their chances of making those playoffs. And then again, if we look at the form, so Cardiff have won 2 of the last 7, and then 1 draw in there as well. Connacht have won 3 of the last 7, only 1 of the last 4 though, and that was last time out too. So this is going to be kind of a tight one between these two, because Connacht, you know, unlike a lot of the other Irish provinces, their depth when you take out even just a few players into the Ireland squad can be a little bit down. But I guess the fact that they're not losing that many players to the Ireland squad might help them, whereas Cardiff have a bunch of players in that Welsh squad, and a lot of them won't be released back to them because a lot of them are actually featuring in matchday squads. So I think it's going to be close in terms of the personnel that both teams can put out. Connacht, but they're another one of the Irish teams who've been kind of wishy-washy this year, whereas Cardiff, that core of young players has driven them on this year, but a lot of those players are actually in that Welsh squad as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how they go without those guys, and maybe even like having a little bit more senior guys maybe coming back into their team, but not necessarily being the form players. So this one is kind of hard for me to pick a winner, but because I'm Irish, I'm going to plug for Connacht, but for it to be very close and Cardiff to get a losing bonus point out of that one, and for both teams still to be just outside the playoff place, depending on how things go. But both, I think, are going to stay in the hunt after this. Next then we have is Glasgow Warriors versus Dragons. This is 3rd versus 15th. It's at Scottstown, and this one is at 7:35 on Saturday. So, in terms of the table, I think this is the biggest disparity between two teams. Like, it has to be, right? Because first we're playing second, so there's nobody above Glasgow playing anyone below them in the table, and Dragons are basically 1 match point off the bottom of the table. So Glasgow 31 points, Dragons 10, so there's 21 points difference between these two. Glasgow won 6 of their 9 games this season, and Dragons have only won 2 of their 9, and then kind of recent form as well. So Glasgow won 5 of the last 7. They did lose the last time out. Dragons, kind of the flip of that, have only won 2 of the last 7, but they won last time out. So Dragons coming in on the back of a win, but it's a win a few weeks ago, and you had Dead Europe in between, etc. So there's no real momentum coming into that. It's kind of hard, when you have a break from competition for a while to carry that in. But still, at least they got a win. And but I honestly can't see them getting another one here. I think it's going to be not necessarily an easy win for Glasgow, but I think a comfortable win certainly for Glasgow in this one, and that will just kind of keep them ticking along there. What they want to do is just at the moment they're looking at Leinster and Benetton are playing each other, and whoever, if Glasgow pick at that win, then whoever loses, Glasgow are leapfrogging them in the table. So Glasgow, I'm expecting to be in second place, unless Leinster lose unless Leinster lose and Benetton don't get a losing bonus point, or sorry, a winning bonus point, and Glasgow win with a bonus point, then Glasgow could actually go top of the table. So Glasgow would be on 36 points, Benetton on 36 as well, and then Leinster would be on 34. But I think Glasgow might pip them. It's hard to tell on the points difference. It's pretty close. I think it'll come down to basically the scoreline in the 2 games for who goes top. But I expect Glasgow probably to be second at the end of this weekend, and probably behind Leinster if the results go as I predict. But yeah, I'm going for a Glasgow win in that one. And then the final game of the weekend is Ospreys versus Ulster. So Ospreys in 8th place, just they're the guys with the targets on the back, just at the bottom of that kind of playoff places. Ulster in 5th, another team who kind of are kind of slowly drifting down the table and need to kind of get themselves together, because they really, like, their European campaign went very badly, and it feels like there's a lot of problems in that squad. But whatever is happening there, they still need to pull themselves together and produce something. In terms of the table, as I said, Ulster in 5th, they're on 28 points. Ospreys in 8th on 25 points. So if Ospreys do win, they will leapfrog Ulster, and maybe other teams will. You could potentially see, if Ulster lost this one, you can see Edinburgh, Stormers and Ospreys all leapfrogging them, and then maybe someone like Connacht or somebody else down in that pack closing the gap in them. So Ulster could see themselves in 8th place by the end of the weekend if they don't win this one. Conversely, if they win, then they're staying with that pack up there near the top, and again, that's where they want to be. And it's, I think in the next kind of 3 or 4 rounds, we're going to see a little bit of daylight coming in somewhere, maybe around about that 5th place, 5th, 6th place, where the top pack kind of break away a little bit, and then from 5th or 6th down, becomes a different kind of almost a separate league where they're battling out for the remaining positions to qualify for the playoffs, which is why wins around this time of the year are very, very important for teams, because it determines what pack you're going to be in and how your season is going to, what kind of run in you're going to have for your season. So in terms of then the form for these guys, so both have won 4 of the last 7, and both have won the last 2. So even though Ulster, as I said, have been patchy, they were poor in Europe as well. They still had a little bit of form, including a win over Leinster in there as well, which was Leinster's last game out in this competition. And then Ospreys with a couple of wins too. So both teams will have like at least some form coming in. It's just about, again, rediscovering, they both have players missing, which most of the teams will, other than the South Africans, obviously. And who can kind of produce from that. As an Irishman, I'm thinking like I've got to back Ulster in this one, but then I'm thinking, well, Ulster just been dire, and so I'm going to go for Ospreys, and I hope that Ulster kind of prove me wrong. Is basically what. So if I'm watching this game, which I might be doing, I'm going to be cheering for Ulster, but I think that Ospreys are going to kind of pip it by a score. It's not going to be too much between the two teams, but that is our look at the weekend's fixtures. If I can, I'm going to be doing some reviews as well of any of the games that I get to watch over the weekend, because I'm actually off for the weekend, which is great. But over the weekend as well, I do have some Six Nations stats that I'm going to be working on too. So it's going to be a very busy rugby weekend for me, and it means that I may not get to cover as many games as I want to. I'm hoping to cover at least 2. I might end up that I just cover 1, or I could cover more. It depends. But whatever happens, I will have a review of the week's action, even if I don't get to cover any games individually. So look out for that. Kind of early next week, we will have that stats video as well, probably coming out over the weekend, because after like on Monday, when I put up the video for the URC review of the weekend's action, I then need to flick back over into Six Nations mode, and then a preview of the next round of fixtures, etc. So it's an exciting weekend of rugby, even if a lot of people are probably going to take a break from rugby. But for me, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking to, because this is where you see the players who are going to light up the Six Nations, maybe next year or in a couple of years' time. This is where you can get kind of first looks at those players, or maybe a closer look at them, having like first starts, or maybe getting a little bit of a run in the team, that kind of thing. And this is where you see that kind of talent being really tested and developed as well. So for anyone who's like a rugby tragic for me, like me, this is a great period of the year, because you're seeing kind of not necessarily new names to you, but names that maybe you're a little bit familiar with, but seeing them a little bit more in terms of getting more game time and stuff like that, and then seeing completely new names too. Especially when it's non-Irish players as well, kind of seeing who's coming through in the other nations as well. So that can be fun. But yeah, that's the end of this one, and I'll see you guys for more and more rugby videos in the coming days.